Hello, my dear friends, and happy Valentine's Day. If you were not told this enough today, I love you. I am so grateful you're a part of this community. And I couldn't be more thrilled that you're choosing to spend your Valentine's Day, or maybe the day after or the day after, with us here at Child Life On Call. This is a bit of a different episode. My very dear friend, Emily Martinek, just joined the Child Life On Call team a few months ago, and she has been asking me so many questions like, what is going on? And how did you get started? And when did you do this? And XYZ. And she said, hold on, I think a lot of people have these same questions. So let me interview you for the podcast. So that is all what this episode is today. So it's a light, fun, I am a total dork. And so is Emily. I hope you enjoy this and you feel like you're hanging out with your friends today. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Katie Taylor. I'm a certified child life specialist, and this is Child Life On Call. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Child Life On Call. This podcast is a safe place for parents to share their stories about what it's like to have a child that has a medical experience, diagnosis, disease, and or everything in between. We know there's power in sharing stories, and that power multiplies when you can listen to other parents who have walked a similar path to yours. Giving and getting advice is great, but hearing how another parent navigates the complexities and nuances of healthcare is even better. As a child life specialist, my role is to support, validate, and provide emotionally safe spaces for kids and their families, and I am so honored to be on this journey with you. In addition to parent stories, we sprinkle in some expert episodes every now and again that have content for both parents and professionals in the field of healthcare, all with the mission to empower parents to be confident advocates and partners with the care team during healthcare experiences. We're so glad you're here.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Child Life on Call podcast. Today, our CEO and founder, Katie Taylor, is in the hot seat,
Ouch, it's hurry, it hurt, it's hot.
right? This idea came about when Katie and I were at onboarding one of our partner hospitals, and
Shout out Christus.
shout out Christus, um, Tyler, Texas. Katie and I met working at Dell Children's about 10 to 10-ish or so years ago. It was
Mhm.
my first job as a child life specialist. Katie had come from Inova, and we just formed a great connection. We laughed a lot. We had similar sense of humor. I feel like the way we cared for patients was similar
Mhm.
too, right? I felt like our just the way that we approached child life, way we approached families was just similar. And so when you find somebody like that, you tend to keep them in your life, right? Because you go through a lot together professionally and personally. Anyway, the moral of the story was that Katie and I hadn't seen each other in 10 years.
Yeah.
And we reunited in Tyler to onboard this hospital. And I just kept asking question after question, right? Because I haven't seen you. And you started this whole company and you've started this incredible podcast. And I just had so many questions. And just wanted, I kept being like, I need to just sit down with you and hash it out. And she was like, let's bring you on the podcast.
Let's do it.
So that's how it kind of came about. And so we talked about before just doing this kind of like as a rapid fire. We might have to edit some of if there's any sort of expletives that are said or anything like that.
For sure. Those may or definitely will happen.
But we've I kind of compiled a list of things that I've been thinking about. Also, some of our colleagues, Lindsay, our operations manager, had a couple questions, so we tagged those on as well.
I'm
So,
so excited.
are you ready?
I'm ready, and thank you for those wonderful things you said about me, and I felt the same way about working with you, and it's those people you click with, the people, and I think what really bonded us was going up against an anesthesiologist together.
And it's funny, I bring that question up because I
Okay.
don't know if you guys know this, but Katie is married to an anesthesia professional. So I think it's a unique thing.
Okay, great.
Okay. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say, and you guys may not know this, but Katie has ruffled a few feathers in her day.
Well, that too. But
But
we Yeah, but I think it's interesting that you're married to someone in anesthesia because we met working in a surgery center, which
Yes, it's true.
yes. Okay. So we'll kind of start off with just like those tell us about where you grew up and why and how and why did that affect who you became?
Ooh, okay. I do feel bad for people who are long-term listeners who have probably heard many of these stories before, but I'm not that smart, and so I tend to say the same things over and over again. I grew up in north of Dallas in a town called Plano, Texas, plain old Texas, and had 2 parents that very much instilled in us our job here is to make the world a better place. We would have values dinners on Sunday nights, which were horrific as a child. We would I mean, this was before the internet, so newspaper articles would come out and we'd like my mom would read a column and we'd talk about the value we heard, and it was all just way too much for me as a child, but clearly she did something right. I may not remember, right, the conversations that we had, but I remember that, like, values and being a good person, was a big part of why we were here on the planet. So, we had a pretty terrible situation happen in our community, and I've talked about it on prior podcasts, where Ashley Estelle was taken from Carpenter Park, which was a park I was at with my brother at his baseball or soccer game, I can't remember, and she was abducted and murdered and found just a few miles from the park. And the reason I bring up that very dark thing at the beginning is this because it shaped who my mom became as a parent. And not in the way that you would think, right? And that she locked us inside and never let us go anywhere, but she truly believed in the value of community education to protect children. And so that's the model that I saw my whole life. And my dad always worked in Medicaid and managed care. And he told me his job was to make sure everybody had access to health care. So I went on and did my own things and danced and went to Penn State and fell in love with Thon, learned about child life there, and that kind of brought me to being a child life specialist today.
That's so it's such a neat story because I was telling you this the other day. I've now met Katie's dad and Katie's mom. I just am waiting to meet her brother. But everybody shares that similar goal, right? That you guys all want to do something for the greater good. And it's just such a cool and unique little family dynamic. And I've loved getting to know both of them because you can tell that they truly care.
But it I just knew that it's from such a young age, like, it really isn't about getting, it's always about giving and how good you feel. My dad just texted me this morning and says, "I wanna pick the kids up, take them on Sunday, and take them to this food bank so we can package food." It's growing up with those kinds of parents is just
Mhm,
it's life-changing.
mhm. Oh, that is so cool. I mean, who wants to take them to the food bank?
I know.
And it's a great learning experience for them, and at this day I know see, we're gonna get caught talking on one
I
subject, and then
know.
we're not gonna
I
be
know,
able to get
sorry.
off it.
Okay, yeah.
But no, it's such a great learning experience, and this day and age, our kids aren't exposed to that as much, right?
Mm-mm.
With just out technology and they're kind of we've lost that, like, focus sometimes on just, like, getting
Human
right to
interaction.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's really special. Okay, kinda bouncing off that, so we know a little bit about your background, but what was the road like for you to become a child life specialist and then, to end up running your own business as well?
I think I had the right place, right time luck
Mhm,
that we had maybe in the 2000s where I was an unaffiliated working professional trying to get into child life. My degree and career was actually supposed to be in public relations and marketing and also sociology. And so I was very interested, I thought, in working for nonprofits to help with community education. And I had met a child life specialist at Thon and thought, that's what I want to do. And it wasn't until I was a year and a half into my job, wanting to be on the ground level with families, not wanting to sit at a computer, that I went to night classes at Northern Virginia Community College to get the extra classes that I needed to be able to sit for a certification exam. I happened to get a practicum. I was in the DC metro area, so there are lots of hospitals and opportunities there. So I did a practicum at Children's National, met a lifelong friend there, Chelsea Grist, who is now Chelsea Harris, who we also worked with together at Dell. And we
Shout out
happened to
Chelsea.
shout out Chelsea, and we also happened to get our internships together. Of course, I applied to internships and did not get them, and that was a thing. I applied to get an internship at my practicum site, and they flat out told me, like, "No, we don't think you have what it takes to move past a practicum. We didn't like the way you answered what is a child life specialist." I think I gave, like, a very, altruistic definition, and I guess they wanted book definition. Either way, that's the feedback I got. So, but I knew once I went to Inova, I was with a group that was, like, living my dream job every single day.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel that. I was actually able to go to Manova a couple of weeks ago and do a site visit, and again, it's like they embodied that sort of approach to child life that I think you and I do, and that like really that ground level with the people, but doing it while supporting each other and bringing each
Mhm.
other up. And I think, yeah, it's kind of like where you found that drive and that passion.
And with a lot of laughter too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that is so baked into any, I think, successful workplace is just laughter and fun when you tend to work around really heavy things.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads me to that next question actually is like what we had some tough interactions working in the surgery center being, young professionals, newer, having to work with people that have, done a lot of medical training and think highly of themselves, which is appropriate and a lot, they've done a lot and they know a lot. So I guess my question for you is what maybe it's not, but what was the toughest interaction for you as a child life specialist working with staff?
Traditionally, I guess the child life specialist before had done things one way, and the staff was really looking for some change to come in about the way child life interacted. And to me, that was like, oh, wow, we're going to get to do some really amazing family centered things here.
Mhm.
But that's actually not what they wanted. They didn't want really family centered things. And some of the struggles that I had would be, papoosing children during a procedure that did not require a papoose. And because of the way things were always done, that's how I'd done. And then maybe escalating that. So escalating that to the nurse manager or the director of the unit and not really getting help with that. And then so escalating it after that. And then, being told, if you wanted things to change, maybe you should have been a nurse. You shouldn't have been a child life specialist, is something that was told me. And then I even went above that at one point, or maybe parallel to that. This hospital had a family liaison who was actually a family member who worked on staff. And we kind of just looked at each other and said, this is as good as it gets. And that actually caused me to leave the field of child life. I thought, wow, if I can't make this tiny change here or these make this little impact, then maybe child life isn't for me. But I would always go back to the family interactions. I remember this sweet little girl. I think about her so often. I can't remember her face, but she had this little kitty cat named Figaro, and she would have to come in for different infusions, like maybe every 4 to 6 weeks. And it was like that family that kept me going, knowing I was going to see them, knowing child life was going to make a difference for them, that I could advocate and push for parental presence in this way. That family kept me coming back. But I talk about imposter syndrome as a child life specialist now in my job, but imposter syndrome is everywhere, whether you're working in radiology or surgery or you're a parent in the hospital or you're here. And it's really interesting how it plays out. Did you feel that way?
I definitely felt that way. I love when you said that the family kept you coming back because you could try things with them and
Mhm.
it was receptive, they were excited by it, they were engaged by it, and those little things, that's just what I feel like for many of us keeps us going, right? Is knowing that there is somebody that is going to really that you can just really work with to create a better outcome, and it kinda yeah, it makes you keep showing up, right? Because if you keep doing the same things every single day and nothing's working, it can be really Tiring.
Yeah, and a recipe for burning out faster than you want to.
This one is this one actually, Lindsay was the one that asked this question, and I think, but
Okay.
how is it being married to someone who works in the medical field? Do you feel like you can
Mm.
relate more to your partner, or does it sometimes cause issues?
I love it for so many reasons. Because we worked together at the beginning, there was, like, a mutual respect and coworkerness, I guess, between us, and I had come from another marriage before in which wasn't sure there was, like, a nice bone in this person's body. Sorry. And one of the things that attracted me to Preston was just how dang kind he was
Mhm,
to his coworkers, to me, patients and families. He let me do my job. He didn't try to get in the way or be the hero. If anything, like he was so hands off because he had another job to think about and I had a job to do. And I think Child Life knows that when you find, especially an anesthesia professional that trusts you, it's
mhm.
like a beautiful relationship. I had
Can
that
be
with many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be so
So,
beautiful. Yeah, and I think you and Preston, shout out, but he also he values your work so much, right? And that he's allowed you to create, I mean, not that he's allowed you, but that he's wanted you to create this space and kind of walked with you in creating this is huge.
oh, 1,000%. I could have not built Child Life on Call in my last marriage.
Mhm,
And I think you have to have a partner or a support system that believes in you and wants you to win.
mhm.
And like Preston picks up the slack more than he does more laundry than I do. He does cooks more dinners than I do. I lock myself in here for hours at a time and he keeps the kids out of the room. I think about a lot of times if roles were reversed, would I be as supportive as he's been? So that's part of the reason that we can stay on this path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was like what you told me whenever I visited. I was like, "How are you doing all of this?" Right? Like running a business, having 2 children, having to travel, but it's having that support of your husband and your family, I think is so important that you guys that you have both of those things is so huge.
Yeah, I think that's the support system, and going back to answering Lindsay's question a little bit about the medical side, it's so useful, like, he's so smart. I always say he's such a smart CRNA, not a great bedside nurse, like, he can't really make a bed well, and, like, he's not exactly, like, tender, but I guess he
That's
can
why
start
he's
an
a
IV for me
CRNA.
when I'm really hungover, so
Yeah,
that's what's
I mean,
important.
heck, he can give you a little IV.
Yeah.
Um, okay, cool. As your dad likes to say, he tells us this frequently on our weekly check-ins. What keeps you up at night? What are some things that you're up late thinking about, and also kind of like what do people think that you're thinking about, but are they
Mm.
misunderstanding? Does that make sense?
The way our business is structured right now, we've been able to grow a little bit and delegate very important things, but the bulk of the business in terms of business development and marketing strategy and actually like app project management still very much falls on me. So for me, it's like the thing that wakes me up in the middle of the night is remembering that we said that this button was going to do this thing. And, like, it's only in my brain, nobody else has it, and that feels difficult sometimes. Are you thinking, like, what keeps me up in terms of the business or just myself as Katie Taylor? Because we all know I'm a little anxious mess, but I'm highly medicated, so
I think, yeah, the Katie Taylor version too. I guess since we're doing this psychoanalyst that we've been doing. Yeah.
yeah. What else keeps me up at night? Not being a good mom, like, keeps me up at night. Yelling at my kids sometimes so much that my voice hurt, like, one time because I yelled. That kinda stuff, like, what a fraud to be talking about child life, but also not be a good mom, that kinda stuff. You
Yeah.
you
No,
get it.
no, totally. As child life specialists, it's like this constant. sort of imposter syndrome because people think that we're child life specialists, that we're really good moms too, right? Or
Right.
like we know how to
Yeah.
be a and I'm like, that feels heavy a lot, you know? Or like when friends are like, "How would you handle that, Emily? You know, if Timmy's getting in trouble at school." And I'm like, "It's because I'm a child life specialist." Yeah, you feel like it feels like this heavy burden that we're supposed to be perfect in all facets.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I feel a lot of times my husband, like, looks at me and is like, "Shouldn't you be handling this better?"
Right. Matthew says the same thing. Use your
Like,
skills.
when I'm, like, losing my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Well, I think you're the Taylor Swift of the child life world, so, like I call you. So you're not there's no imposter syndrome there.
Does that
Um,
make Preston Travis Kelce?
oh, wait, but I'm Kelsey. Dang
Oh,
it.
yeah, wait, you're Kelce. Okay, we have to figure this out.
Yeah, there's a lot of okay, but kind of off topic, but at the same time, shout out to Rankin Jordan that you guys loved the Taylor Swift kind of play into onboarding your hospital. I think it's so on brand.
Emily doesn't give enough credit to herself. Emily joins a crazy child life team here at Child Life on Call. I call it a child life team, but we're obviously not just child life. But she jumps into like literally the busiest season we've ever had, onboarding 2 hospitals simultaneously, basically creating a position from scratch and like going full force, all while leaving a job, being a mom of 2. Her husband travels, and you just bring this like skill level but also brevity to every call. And so one day she just starts ad-libbing or whatever it is, and starts talking about like throwing the catch and being the quarterback. And then thankfully Taylor and Travis are together, so the world is a better place, and we start talking about it, and it's so funny. And Rankin Jordan, tell everybody what they made us.
They made us the Taylor Swift friendship bracelets with like Child Life on Call plus Rankin Jordan or Emily, Travis Kelsey. I mean, all of it's just adorable.
I feel like people are scared about the state of child life right now. And sure, like there aren't things I love about it. But when I go to Rankin Jordan and I go to Inova and I go to Christus and I talk with the people at Gillette and MedStar Georgetown and Dell Children's and Texas Children's, like child life is amazing. Like they are so freaking valuable. There are roadblocks right now, but we are going to get there. Like I'm not scared. There are amazing professionals doing incredible work, and we're going to figure this out.
Totally. And that's actually a question and I think we should go right into it because I there has been so much a lot of doom with our profession and what is it going to look like and is the profession going to just die out? And I know that you've always kind of voiced differently that you feel like, yes, this is a roadblock, but it's not going to die out. And I think so. My question for you was, what are your thoughts on the child life field, where it's going? And do you feel the ACLP is handling it or how you feel they're handling it? And where do you think our shift's going to be? What do you think what is our future going to look like?
Oh man, good question. I don't know if I have the right politically correct or whatever answer it could be. All I can do is really speak from the heart, as cheesy as that sounds. Is when we started building Child Life on Call, we had a goal for every single family to have access to child life services. And I very naively believed that other hospital systems wanted that too. And what is always the dark turn is when you get into these conversations and you realize, wow, there's a lot of toxicity here. There are a lot of underpaid, undervalued, too many things on one plate. So even though, yes, everybody can altruistically believe that every family needs child life services, there are so many roadblocks to getting families and getting child life specialists the tools that they deserve. I think that I have learned more in the past 2 years just talking to child life programs and learning about their struggles. That is a big missed opportunity that I don't know that the ACLP has done, and maybe they have, and I am just not aware of what they've learned. That I think partnerships with like-minded organizations like Child Life on Call could do the ACLP a bit of good, but instead there seems to be this, like, we can't support you because we don't, we don't sign off on everything you say and we can, so that's the impression I've always gotten. Maybe that's not the impression they're trying to share. I've would love for the ACLP president to come on the podcast. I have asked her to do that before. Or maybe the CEO or, just to somebody to close the gap because I feel like there's a lot of us and maybe it's social media who are very aligned on what could be better for this profession. And then it seems like the ACLP seems to sit over here. And so there's just that disconnect. And I think we would all be a lot stronger working together to the same goal. I also did a deep dive to the ACLP's mission statement, and their mission is not solely to support child life specialists. They also have a goal to make sure families get family centered care and psychosocial support. So almost wonder if that mission is too big for ACLP and they just need to come back to the basics of how can we make child life specialists thrive and let us do our job to ensure family centered care is delivered.
to get that to them. No, I think it's nail on the head on all of it. I was talking with a hospital last 2 weeks ago, and they're drowning in all of the things, right? Like the staff retention and the not being able to talk the lingo to the admin for pay raises and et cetera, et cetera. And it's funny because I'm like, but if you partner with Child Life on Call, we can help with all of those things, right? And so a partnership like that with the ACLP, or if the ACLP could somehow, yeah, do that more of that groundwork, right? Or like, here's your struggles, here's what we can provide for you, here's where we can outsource for you.
And I heard this voiced at the listening session last week is there doesn't seem to be a lot of outside experts coming into the ACLP. There
Right.
seems to be a like, let's make a committee or a roadmap for this based on child life specialists doing it. But clearly, like we need the help. We're the ones who need that like this expertise, and like that's what we try to do. That's what I try to do on the podcast is bring in the parent as the expert on
Mhm.
what the healthcare should be like, and then also within the child life circle, like what experts can we bring in who is doing it right in the community, who is the expert on how to talk about pay raises. We brought in someone with that, how to talk on your financials. We don't have to know everything. And
Mhm.
so when we let go of that ego and just ask and get curious about it, I think we go a lot further.
Absolutely. And I agree with you.
I mean, I think we'd be in a worse position if we were very highly paid professionals and everybody was saying they're frauds, pay them less. That would be really scary. That's not
Right.
what's happening. We're actually like almost getting this grassroots community around child life specialists and a parent army. Just the last week, somebody saw a picture of Emily on my social media and said, "Hey, I'm a parent. This woman was my child life specialist. I follow your page so I know how to support child life." Like, that is incredible. There's a grassroots community that's building of organizations, of parents, and of child life specialists that is going to leverage the child life voice. And I hope that Child Life on Call is contributing positively to that.
Absolutely. We're going to blast this podcast episode.
What's up?
Who is your mentor? Who do you go to? And I know it's me, but stop. Who do
Yeah.
you talk to when you feel stuck? Who's your mentor?
I have a few that help in different, I would say, facets. My dad, who acts as chief strategy officer, is absolutely my mentor in slowing down and building business. My mom's the same way and how to be a good person and what really matters. I would say that Jamie Gentili, who's the system director at Inova, also is just such a level-headed genius on perspective and what's real and what's not. And so I can often come to her and say, this has happened or this is the challenge we're having and get feedback there. I have kind of another mentor in the business world. Her name is Serene Noor Ali. I very much look up to how she builds her business. She's also a medical parent. I would say I surround myself with like peer slash mentors like you, like Lindsay, like Lauren, who I can ask questions to and get honest feedback about. And maybe that's a life hack is to not have your mentor be someone that's so far away, but actually somebody who you keep really close.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a friend, colleague, mentor, kind of all rolled into one.
Mhm.
Right. And somebody that is an expert, but doesn't always act,
There's no
doesn't think they're
ego.
the expert. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't
Yeah.
need it.
As soon as I talk to someone who thinks they're incredibly smart, I
Mhm.
am automatically turned off.
Right. Yes. You and I we don't play with that.
We we have a radar for that.
Mhm.
Do you remember when we were working with a doctor and he wanted to show you a game on the iPad? And it was like one of those things where this is a doctor that we had worked so hard and we're never going to get anywhere with. Never, never going to get anywhere with. So we just had to play the game of niceties and we see you every day. And he tells you, Emily, I've downloaded this new game on the iPad. You have to see it. And maybe it was Brittany Wittenberg, Brittany shout out, because the three of us work very close together. And he gets out his iPad and it's a picture of his wife in a bikini on the beach. Do you remember this?
I do remember. I know exactly who you're talking about.
And it was one of the most awkward moments where he also couldn't pull up the app right away. So we were just like sitting there looking at his beautiful wife on the beach in her bikini. And it was really awkward. Do you remember
No,
that?
I know no, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think it is the same provider that asked me when he saw me at a grocery store on the weekend what I was doing on this side of town, because clearly I don't make enough to live on his side of town. So, there's that. Mhm.
Oh,
Should
Lord.
we give a shout out?
No, we probably shouldn't. We'd be handed a cease and desist letter.
But yes, yes. I mean, but the other part of that is that he wanted to show us a game on his phone, and I think yes, a lot of those like nuances that we have to like act excited about in our role, like, oh, thank you
Right.
for showing me the game on the iPad. I couldn't have,
Yeah.
found that myself, or
It's
look at
the
this.
only thing I care about. So
Right,
thank you for showing me.
right. And I think, so many times in our field, we have to just act grateful for that, like, "Oh, he that person
Ooh.
acknowledged me," or that person, took a break in their day to we have to always be grateful, and I think it leads, again, to, where we are in this burnout of, like, we always have to be on.
It's Emily, I don't want to speak for your experience, but you had a true almost like PTSD moment in coming to work for us.
Mhm.
And when any kind of feedback was going to be given, like describe what you felt like.
Yeah, I for so long, my feedback and the 10 years that I've been a child life specialist has always just been very direct and devalidating, and here's what you're doing wrong, or how many times did I get told, oh, you weren't standing on the right side of the bed, and or you were blocking my view, or you needed to get out of the room, or you didn't knock on that patient's door. I mean, little things like that, as a 35-year-old having to have those types of interactions. It's created this sort of um PTSD sort of feeling where I feel like I can't have constructive conversations sometimes because I feel like it's going to be another one of those finger in
Yeah.
the face types of moments.
I bet a lot of nurses and other techs in healthcare. I mean, I just imagine scrub techs
Yeah.
and what they go through.
And residents,
And
I know they feel it a lot too.
it's really scary, and you're right, and the fact that at the same time, we have to turn around and be like, "Thank you for letting me in the room,"
Mhm.
like, that feels so twisted.
Right? You always have to be grateful, or thank you for that great feedback.
Yeah, yeah,
And, here I am, trying to, make sure I used the right hand to knock on the door. It's just
right,
every little thing. But
yeah,
we should be grateful that we were allowed to come, right? And so
right.
I think we have to be able, as we continue to grow in this field, there's got to be more of a, I don't know, a respect, a sort of like, I want us to be able to, an administrator told me one time, child life needs a seat at the table, and we do not have that seat at the table right now. Or maybe many places don't, right? We don't have that seat at those meetings or at those sort of like discussions where the big changes are happening, and we deserve it. And it's only going to make us more part of the team when we are included in those discussions, because we're just not.
That's exactly right. It's part of the reason I try to be so vocal on social media, on LinkedIn. It's part of the reason Child Life on Call has a seat at the table amongst global healthcare organizations like the FDA. We are helping to actually write the pediatric playbook on creating digital healthcare tools for pediatrics. Child Life on Call has a seat at that table because family centered care, psychosocial care, considerations of children and family have to be involved in those conversations. And so Child Life on Call is the one who's doing that, and it's a privilege to be there. I have to pay to have a seat at the table, but I don't care sometimes what that costs because child life needs visibility and we deserve that seat.
Absolutely. And that's why I love working for you, is because we do, and we get to be included in these, like, these, I mean, it's life changing, right? Riveting. I mean, it's huge. The pediatric playbook, another shout out.
Yeah,
They're doing some incredible work. So Katie, we got one more question, and then I'll let you go eat your lunch.
okay, I'm hungry.
What do you want listeners to know about what Child Life on Call is doing and where they are going?
Ooh, good question. I want you all to know that Child Life on Call is not a technology replacement for child life specialists. I think that's one of the common misconceptions that we hear. And that has to do with really any technology, right? I have been the child life specialist who is in the room, who is waiting on a procedure. And then I realize it's actually happening, and the kid has the iPad. And when the procedure's over, I look at the nurse and say, "You didn't call me." And they go, "She's fine. They had the iPad." Like that is what I know child life specialists are afraid of. And that's not what Child Life on Call is. Child Life on Call is a tool to enhance and expand what Child Life Services is. Right now, we can only get to so many families, but that does not mean that families don't deserve to have access to these tools, resources, support lists, book lists, how to build a coping plan, how to advocate for this procedure, just these things that can help parents feel empowered. That is not going to take away from child life. And even the best robot we could create could never replace what a child life specialist does. So I think that's what I really want people to know about Child Life on Call. It's not just an app. Like you truly get a partner to brainstorm the best way to think about how can we instill family-centered care in every single corner of every single patient and operating room and lobby. And like we're a partner in that, and think about how do we take this up the food chain to make sure child life services are more established here. And we do that with technology. We get in the door with getting to share what our app does, and it is incredible. But what's making the biggest impact is that child life specialists are feeling more valued and having more conversations and more seats at the table
More seats at the
because
table.
of their partnership with Child Life on Call.
No, absolutely. The that it's huge. And it's why I want to continue to bring on more hospitals, more facilities. We want you guys to partner with us, because like Katie's saying, it's how can we make family-centered care at the forefront of our organization, and then and getting the whole staff on board. It's truly, it can be a game changer.
Yeah. We like it.
So schedule a demo.
Exactly. Link below.
Yeah, link below, click.
Well, thank you, Emily, for asking these hard-hitting questions and putting me in the hot seat. This was really fun. I wanna do it to you one day.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do it. I felt like I had to, like, I was like your therapist, or you were mine, or you were having to like give me your whole life story, but we really appreciate it, and I know that so many of our listeners, just they love they love you and they really feel like they're getting to just know Katie Taylor for not just Child Life on Call, but who she is as a mom and as a business owner and as a wife. And I think it's just such a neat space that we get to create with all of our listeners.
Well, thank you, Em, for having me. Love
All
you.
right. Hearts.
Heart. Thank you all so much for listening to Child Life on Call. If you head to our website, childlifeoncall.com, you're going to find all sorts of stuff there for parents, professionals, healthcare providers, child life specialists. No matter who you are, actually, when you just go to our homepage, it'll help you direct to exactly where you need to go. On that, you'll find opportunities and PDUs for child life specialists, parents. We've got a starter kit for you. And clinicians, we even have a clinician course, which teaches you how to be a confident and capable caregiver in pediatrics. We're so grateful that you're here. Please DM us on Instagram. And like I mentioned, when you rate and review this podcast, it helps other families be able to find us. So let's keep doing that. And I will see you again here next week.